When my mother married Daniel, I was 16 years old. My father had left us 3 years before. Since then, our house felt empty and quiet. My mother tried to be strong, but I could see the sadness in her eyes. Daniel was kind from the beginning. He never tried to replace my father. He spoke gently. He respected my space. When I had problems at school, he listened carefully. When I felt stressed about exams, he encouraged me. At first, I saw him only as my mother's husband. Nothing more. But slowly something changed inside me. One evening, we were sitting at the dinner table. My mother was working late. It was just Daniel and me. We talked about my dream of becoming a teacher. He looked at me proudly and said, "You are smart and strong. You can do anything." No one had said that to me before. My heart felt warm. I did not understand why. After that night, I started thinking about him too much. When he came home from work, I noticed small things: his smile, his calm voice, the way he treated my mother with respect. I compared him to boys at school. They seemed childish. Daniel seemed mature and responsible. I felt confused. I knew he was my stepfather. I knew these thoughts were wrong. But feelings do not always listen to rules. One afternoon, I caught myself waiting by the window for his car to arrive. When he walked inside and said hello, my heart beat faster. I felt guilty immediately. Why am I feeling this? I asked myself. At night, I could not sleep. I felt ashamed. I loved my mother. She trusted him. She trusted me. But my feelings were becoming stronger. I never said anything. I never acted differently. I kept everything inside. I smiled at dinner. I did my homework. I behaved normally. Outside, I was a good daughter. Inside, I was fighting a silent battle. I knew something was wrong, not with him, but with my emotions. I did not understand the difference between gratitude, admiration, and love. And that confusion was the beginning of a painful lesson. The more I tried to ignore my feelings, the stronger they became. Daniel continued being kind. He helped me with math. He drove me to school when it rained. He asked about my day. One evening, my mother had to travel for work for 2 days. It was the first time I stayed alone in the house with Daniel. Nothing inappropriate happened. He behaved respectfully like always. But my emotions became louder in the silence of the house. We had dinner together. We talked about books and movies. He told me about his childhood. I listened carefully. I felt special because he trusted me with his stories. That night, I realized something dangerous. I was not just feeling admiration. I was emotionally attached. This was not love. It was confusion mixed with loneliness. I started imagining things that should not be imagined. I felt jealous when he hugged my mother goodbye before her trip. That jealousy scared me. Stop, I told myself. This is your mother's husband. But I also felt something else: guilt. I was betraying my mother in my heart. Even if I did nothing, my thoughts felt like emotional cheating. On the second night, Daniel knocked on my door to ask if I needed anything. I quickly said no and closed the door. I did not trust my emotions. I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. Why are you thinking like this? I whispered. I understood something important. I was not in love with Daniel. I was in love with the feeling of being protected. After my father left, I wanted stability. I wanted someone strong to stay. Daniel became that symbol. The problem was not him. The problem was my emotional need. When my mother returned home, I felt relief. But I also felt ashamed. I avoided eye contact with both of them for days. Inside my heart, I knew I had to face the truth. If I continued like this, I would destroy my family. Not with actions but with hidden emotions. And emotional betrayal can hurt just as much as real betrayal. One afternoon, my mother noticed my strange behavior. "You seem distant," she said softly. "Is something wrong?" Her voice was full of care. That made it harder. I could not tell her everything. I did not want to hurt her. But I also could not continue living with guilt. That night, I made a brave decision. I asked Daniel if we could talk in the living room. My hands were shaking. My heart was beating fast. "I need space," I said quietly. "I feel confused about my emotions." He looked concerned but calm. "What do you mean?" I did not explain every detail. I simply said, "Sometimes I mix up feelings. I think I need distance to understand myself better." There was silence. Then he said something that changed my life. "You are young," he said gently. "It is normal to feel confused. But I am your stepfather. My role is to protect you and respect your mother. Boundaries are important." His words were clear and strong. In that moment, I felt embarrassed but also safe. He did not misunderstand me. He did not encourage anything wrong. He acted like a responsible adult. I realized that true love respects limits. After that conversation, he became more careful with distance. Not cold, just appropriate. More space. Less emotional closeness. It hurt at first. But slowly, I began to see things clearly. My feelings were not romantic love. They were emotional confusion caused by loss, loneliness, and admiration. I also understood something painful. If I had continued hiding my feelings, I could have destroyed trust in our family. Infidelity is not only physical. It can start in the heart. And I did not want to become the reason my mother cried again. That realization broke my illusion. But it also helped me grow. After our talk, I started focusing on myself. I joined a school club. I spent more time with friends. I talked to a counselor at school about emotional confusion and family changes. I learned that teenagers sometimes mistake admiration for love. It happens when we feel lonely or insecure. My mother and Daniel continued their marriage peacefully. Watching them together no longer hurt me. Instead, I felt grateful. Daniel's respectful reaction taught me something important. Real adults protect boundaries. One day, my mother hugged me and said, "You have become more mature this year." She did not know the full story, but she saw the change in me. I finally understood that my feelings were part of growing up. They did not define me. What defined me was my choice to handle them responsibly. I learned 3 important lessons. First, emotions are not always wrong, but actions matter. Second, boundaries protect families. Third, love must never harm trust. Years later, I met someone my own age. A kind young man who respected me. This time, my feelings were healthy and clear. When I looked back at my teenage confusion, I did not feel shame anymore. I felt wisdom. That chapter of my life was not about forbidden love. It was about learning the difference between emotional need and real love. And sometimes, the most powerful love is the one that knows when to stop.